this was later on because we were in the camp, 15,000 children.
Hitler wanted to kill all the Jews in Europe. Not many people believed he would really do this, so no one stopped him. He rounded them all up and loaded them onto trains and locked them in horrible places called concentration camps. There was no way anyone could escape. The life they used to have was gone.
I'm actually happy to be here, even though with tears in my eyes. But it's very special and meaningful for me to stand here before you and tell you some of my story of 4 horrible years during the Nazi regime. And what you saw right now with your own eyes in the play of Anna Frank's, I mean, the stories of the survivors and the endings, most of them unfortunately the same. But for the dead and the living, we must bear witness, said Elie Wiesel. Every year it takes on a profound meaning, remembering and honoring the victims of the Holocaust. And for me, it also commemorates the regaining of my personal freedom, the memory which remains as vivid as the day and the moment I learned of it. Even today, the Holocaust defies belief. That just 1 generation ago, a seemingly civilized society could have systematically and ruthlessly slaughtered 6 million Jews. Yet it happened while the world stood silent. Not until the liberation of the death camps did the world register its outcry, but too late to stop the unprecedented tragedy. On May the 5th in 1945, I was literally born again, and today I stand before you to help kindle the memory. But memory is our pain and also our treasure, the source of our strength, and it is this treasure that enables me to relate it to you. When the German overran Latvia, where I was born, my hometown of Libau, which is now Liepaja, we knew that things were going to be difficult for the Jews, but no one could imagine what was in store for us. In the first 2 weeks of the occupation, the Germans issued orders for all men of workable age to report to a market square from where they would be taken to work. My father, being eligible, went, and we never saw him again. We believed that they were taken to some labor camp, and the Latvian population took advantage of the fact and extracted valuables from the families by pretending to buy and deliver food to the laborers that never came home. Their cruelty was indescribable. The Latvians collaborated with the Germans in every way possible and more. They were in the majority that brutally murdered most of the Jewish population. That we learned only later. Of course, on German orders. That's what they said. On Yom Kippur, after having killed most of the male population, with some exception, and the exceptions were the ones that were working for the SS or for German facilities for war need. They rounded up all elderly and incapacitated people from hospitals and homes. The reason given was, as always, was the relocation. My paternal grandfather and grandmother and aunt were murdered at that time. By then, rumors had been circulating of mass killings. But then who would have wanted to believe it? Or who could humanly imagine that it could be possible? On December the 15th in 1941, we were given orders to be ready to leave our homes behind and only to take along the bare necessities that we could carry. The Latvian soldiers arrived late in the dark and cold afternoon and ordered my mother, my two sisters, my maternal grandfather, aunt, and her two sons, and myself, into the darkness of the street to join many rows of people on the way to the prison. On arrival there, they packed most of the Jews onto trucks, and then they were taken away where they were shot in the woods on the outskirts of our town. Being young, fairly well dressed and wearing a band with a red cross on my arm of my coat, I must have caught the attention of the SS man in charge, who was deciding who goes left and the others who goes right. The ones went to death and the ones were to live. I was to go in his office where I had to tell him my name and age. And then he looked at me and shouted at the guard, "God, let her go." And in fear of desperation, I pleaded with him to let my mother and my sister come with me. And then he shouted once more, "Take them with and don't let me ever see you again." This is how my immediate family and I were saved from certain death. I recall it as its first of several sure miracles, but only for my sister and me. My dear mother and little sister of 6 years old were killed after arrival in Kaiserwald. And Kaiserwald was the first concentration camp that was established in Latvia, in Riga, in the capital. After the December 15th Aktion, it's a German word, the Jewish population was reduced from 8,000 to 800, and a ghetto was erected, and all 800 of us had to leave our homes. Once again by force, to live in a small part, to live in another part of town, surrounded by barbed wire and guarded by German SS this time. No one was allowed to leave, except in groups to go to work in the morning and return at night. The work was forced labor, of course, working for the SS and German army needs. This went on for the best part of the year 1942 and 43. Then again, on Yom Kippur, which is the holiest night for the Jewish people, we were awakened and ordered to get ready for the train. No one knew where we were going, but when we saw the cattle cars, we realized we are being shipped to a concentration camp. We were pushed into cattle trucks without food or water or any toilet facilities, standing room only. We were not met at the train by Jewish camp inmates, but by Latvian and Ukraine guards, who accompanied us all the way until we reached Kaiserwald, which was that concentration camp, the only official concentration camp in Latvia. In Kaiserwald, we were again divided into left and into right groups. My mother could have come with me and my sister, but she chose to go with my little sister. We never saw them again. Even after all these many years, it is still incomprehensible that all this could have happened. I pleaded with my mother to stay with my sister and me, but she would not hear of it. She said that we can take care of ourselves, but my little sister needed her. I told you now of the first miracle that happened during the beginning of the German occupation. Well, now it's exactly now 68 years on May the 5th since I myself finally was freed after the 4 years as a prisoner. There is so much to tell about the 4 years of hell I experienced, but neither time nor my own strength would allow me to do it. It is not at all strange that no matter how many years have passed, the pain is still there. It takes sometimes inhuman strength to talk about it without tears coming to your eyes. It is a sheer miracle that I'm here, as it is also for so many of us, and it was truly ironic that I and 80 others, out of a boatload of 600, were saved by members of the same nation that sought our complete destruction. Unknown to us, it was the eve of the end of the war, when the German SS of Stutthof, where that was my last destination of the camp, received orders to evacuate our concentration camp. I had worked as a nurse all through the 4 years of imprisonment. The so-called hospital and its inmate patients were transferred on an ammunition barge. The staff was also ordered along. Most of the patients suffered from typhoid, a deadly disease. No medication, of course. We were told we are going to an island in the Baltic Sea, which was named Gotland, but that was not to be. Entry to that island was refused because the barge was flying a yellow flag, indicating a diseased cargo. We set out to sea and drifted aimlessly for 9 days and 9 nights without food or fresh water, awaiting certain death every minute of the time. The people could not drink seawater, which minimized the chance of survival even more. The sick ran high fever and became delirious. Each day, many people died, and they had to be thrown into the sea. There was no way out. Certain that death was awaiting us all. And then, the miracle happened. On the 9th day, a Russian airplane made a direct hit on the barge, setting the rear part on fire. You can imagine the panic. Those of us who were mobile and the SS guards fought the fire. The guards, now that their lives were in danger, shot off rockets to attract the German fireboats that were normally in the area to rescue their own distressed ships, and so we were eventually seen. They came and placed planks across to our barge, and only the ones who were strong enough to walk across were saved. Many had severe burns, and the rest perished. The German sailors tried to make us comfortable, and it was a very strange feeling. And only 80 out of more than 600 souls were saved. After some hours, we eventually arrived in the German naval harbor of Kiel. There, white flags were flying from all of the many ships, showing that the Germans had surrendered. But it took us a long time to comprehend that the horror was finally over. In the difficult time to fight to remain alive and normal, we lost many of our loved ones. But not everybody had the schus, which is a Hebrew word for, what is that word? The shared schus, to remain alive even though the first ray of freedom had come through being liberated. I, for one, did not want to talk about my war experience until many years after, because I wanted to forget and build a new life with hope for a better world. I did not want my children to know of the horror I experienced. But now, practically on the eve of my life, I feel it's my solemn duty to tell them all. Because remembrance means commitment to the spiritual values of our perished martyrs. It means working for the welfare of our people with the state of Israel in its center. If nothing else, this remembrance will make us better human beings with more love for our people and for our heritage. This is why remembrance of the Holocaust is so essential. It adds special dimension to the Jewish unity and solidarity. And preserving the memory is a sacred duty of all of us who care for a better future for the Jewish people, for Israel, and for all mankind. And in memory of those who gave their lives for the sanctity of the Jewish people, and in living tribute to our fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters destroyed by the Nazi onslaught, we are each of us obliged to see ourselves in every generation as survivors of the Holocaust to the end of time. As time passes and more voices of the witnesses like me of the Holocaust fall silent, it is critical that we remember the horrors of the past in order to protect the future. In the aftermath of the Holocaust, indifference to genocide cannot be tolerated, and hence Holocaust remembrance is a permanent moral obligation. In conclusion, permit me to share a joy I experienced during the past year whilst I was celebrating 3 major events in my life, namely the birth of my latest granddaughter, Haley, the participation of the Hadassah Centennial Convention in Jerusalem, and by physically being at the 20th anniversary of the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., especially when surrounded by my 4 wonderful children. All of the above is a gift from the Almighty and a personal victory over the Nazis. In 1981, at the Western Wall, while attending the First World Gathering in Jerusalem, we solemnly pledged the Holocaust will never happen again. We survivors served notice to the world that the Holocaust could never be forgotten and must never be repeated. We reaffirmed the continuity and survival of the Jewish people with the state of Israel as a focus, the state of Israel as a focus of Jewish life. That we stand witness before the world to the Holocaust we lived through. Now, 34 years later, I stand here today with all of you here as a link in the chain of memory, the memory of suffering, the spirit of our heritage and faith, and our commitment to the state of Israel. Let us teach the world around us to be dedicated to peace and freedom. Let us go on living with shared commitment to remember the past, to live the present, and to trust the future. So all of us therefore can say, Zechor, which means remember, never to forget.